The Orion Empire shook, its alien commanders trembling, as Earth's ancient Dreadnought fleet emerged from hyperspace. Supreme Commander Izar's reptilian eyes widened in primal fear as he stared at the vid screen, sweat dripping down his scaly skin. It was the year 2257. Captain Randy Hill stood on the bridge of the TSS Indomitable, an Orion-class dreadnought. The ship was 2 kilometers long, bristling with railguns, plasma cannons, and nuclear missiles. Randy was 35 years old, a seasoned veteran. His crew of 500 bustled around him at battle stations. "Sir, the Theta 9 mining colony sent a distress signal," First Mate Jack Thompson said. "Unknown aliens are attacking them." Randy narrowed his eyes. "Set a course best possible speed. Humans won't go quietly into the night, not on my watch." The dreadnought surged forward as one, forming up around the Indomitable. 20 ancient warships, the last line of defense for humanity. As they neared Theta 9, Chief Engineer Mike Wilson called out from the scanning station. "Captain, I'm detecting over 100 alien vessels. Their ships are organic, with advanced weapons and shields. We're outgunned." Randy's lips curled. The odds were grim. The alien armada dwarfed the human fleet, but surrender was never an option. He opened a communication channel to Izar. The reptilian alien stared through the screen, yellow eyes flashing. "Human fleet, this is Izar, Supreme Commander of the Orion Empire. You are outmatched. Surrender now, and your lives may be spared." Randy stood straight, meeting Izar's gaze. "We do not surrender. We are the last hope for humanity. If we fall here, Earth falls, and that will never happen while we still draw breath. We will fight to the last." As the screen went dark, klaxons blared. The crew readied themselves, faces grim. Mining colony citizens huddled in their homes praying. The fate of humanity hung on this battle. Randy gripped the helm, knuckles white, as the dreadnought surged to meet the alien foe. This would be a fight for the ages, a desperate struggle. But they had to win. There was no other choice. There was no time to waste. Randy barked orders, positioning the fleet in a defensive ring around Theta 9. The dreadnoughts took up positions, their weapons primed and ready. Suddenly a transmission came through from the surface. It was David Martinez, the mining colony administrator. His voice was strained. "Captain Hill, we've found something big. An alien artifact buried deep. It's a huge crystal structure, some kind of power source, and the Orions are coming for it." Randy's blood ran cold. This was what the aliens were after, the key to their victory. "Understood, David. We'll hold them off. I'm coming down with a team to see this thing for myself." He gathered Jack, Mike, and a squad of Marines piling into a dropship. As they descended, Randy couldn't shake a feeling of dread. The colony looked too quiet, too still. They touched down and approached the dig site, weapons ready. Equipment lay scattered, blood stained the walls, an eerie silence hung in the air. A scream pierced the quiet, coming from the artifact chamber. Randy's team rushed in and froze at the sight before them. Bodies littered the floor. David and the colonists, their corpses desiccated, drained of life. Standing over them, a group of Orion soldiers, led by a hulking figure in heavy armor. The figure turned, facing Randy. It was Kazrak, Izar's brutal enforcer. In his hand he held an orb, glowing with the same energy as the artifact. Kazrak's laugh echoed in the chamber. "You're too late, human. The artifact's power is ours. The Orion Empire has already won." Randy and his team opened fire, but their shots ricocheted off Kazrak's armor. He advanced unfazed as they fell back behind some crates. They were outmatched and outgunned, but Randy had one last desperate ploy. He caught Jack's eye and nodded to the charges on his belt. Jack understood. As Randy and Mike laid down covering fire, Jack crept forward, planting charges around the chamber. Kazrak bore down on them, death in his eyes. At the last second, the charges blew. The chamber collapsed in a rain of rubble, burying the artifact. Randy, Jack, and Mike barely made it out alive. They stumbled to the surface, battered and bleeding. The artifact was gone, but so were the colonists, and the Orion threat remained. This was only the beginning, Randy knew, a prelude to a greater conflict to come. The battle for... Randy, Jack and Mike stumbled onto the bridge of the TSS Indomitable, their armor charred and dented from the desperate battle on Theta 9. The crew snapped to attention as Admiral John Graves's hologram flickered to life on the main screen. "Captain Hill, I received your report on the Theta 9 incident," Graves said, his brow furrowed. "The loss of the colony is a blow, but the discovery of that alien artifact changes everything." Randy stepped forward, his face grim. "Admiral, we barely made it out of there alive. The Orions were after that artifact, and they were willing to kill every last colonist to get it." Graves nodded. "I'm afraid Theta 9 was just the beginning. Our intelligence reports indicate that similar artifacts have been found on multiple planets across the galaxy, each one under heavy Orion guard." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Randy's mind raced, trying to piece together the Orion's plan. "These artifacts must be the key to some kind of ancient technology," Graves continued. "Something powerful enough to tip the balance of the war in their favor. We can't let that happen." He leaned forward, his eyes boring into Randy's. "Captain Hill, I'm giving you a new mission. Take the fleet and track down these artifacts before the Orions can get their hands on them. Secure them by any means necessary." Randy saluted. "Yes, sir, we won't let you down." As the crew scrambled to prepare for departure, Dr. Eric Saunders, the ship's chief science officer, approached Randy. He was a thin, wiry man with a perpetually worried expression. "Captain, I've been analyzing the data we collected from the Theta 9 artifact," Saunders said, his voice low and urgent. "The energy readings are unlike anything I've ever seen. But there's something else." Randy frowned. "What is it, Doctor?" Saunders hesitated, as if afraid to speak the words aloud. "The artifact's energy. It appears to have a corrupting effect on organic matter. Prolonged exposure could lead to mutations, even a total breakdown of biological systems." A chill ran down Randy's spine as he remembered the twisted, lifeless bodies of the Theta 9 colonists, the strange, almost feral behavior of the Orion soldiers. "My God," he whispered. "That explains what happened on the colony, what it did to those people." Saunders nodded grimly. "I'll keep working on it, Captain. Try to find a way to shield our crew from the artifact's effects. But I'd advise extreme caution when handling them." Randy clapped the doctor on the shoulder. "Do what you can, Eric. We're counting on you." As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, a distress call suddenly blared across the comm channels. It was from Sigma-7, a nearby human colony. "This is Sigma-7. We are under attack by Orion forces," a panicked voice cried out. "They're everywhere. We need immediate assistance." Randy's heart pounded as he realized what the Orion's presence on Sigma-7 could mean. Another artifact. "Set a course for Sigma-7, maximum speed," he barked to the helmsman. "All hands, battle stations." The fleet emerged from hyperspace on the edge of the Sigma-7 system and straight into a nightmare. A massive Orion armada hung in space before them, easily dwarfing the human fleet, and at its center, the massive Dreadnought of Supreme Commander Izar himself. The Orions wasted no time, opening fire with a devastating barrage of energy weapons. The human ships shuddered and bucked as their shields strained to hold back the onslaught. On the bridge of the Indomitable, sparks flew and consoles exploded as the ship took hit after hit. Randy gripped the armrests of his chair, teeth gritted, as Jack shouted damage reports. "Hull breach on decks 7 and 8. We're venting atmosphere." "Shields down to 20%. We can't take much more of this." Randy stared at the tactical display, watching helplessly as the Orion ships tore through the human fleet's defenses like tissue paper. They were outgunned and outnumbered. This was a fight they couldn't win. But just as all seemed lost, a strange glow began to emanate from the Indomitable's core. It started as a faint shimmer, then grew into a blinding pulse of energy that swept through the ship and out into space. Randy watched in amazement as the energy field expanded, enveloping the entire human fleet in a shimmering cocoon of light. And to his shock, The Orion weapons fire seemed to simply wash over the field, leaving the ships within unharmed. "What the hell is happening?" Jack muttered, his eyes wide. Randy shook his head, hardly daring to believe what he was seeing. Some kind of advanced shielding technology built into the ship itself, maybe a leftover from the same civilization that created the artifacts. A slow grin spread across his face as he realized what this meant. They had a chance now, more than a chance. "All ships, push forward," he yelled into the comm. "Take advantage of this new defense and drive the Orions back. Let's show them what humanity is made of." With renewed determination, the human fleet surged ahead, their weapons blazing as The Indomitable led the charge as the human fleet pushed forward, their weapons blazing, driving the Orion ships back. The strange energy field held strong, shielding them from the onslaught. Within minutes, the Orion fleet was in full retreat, fleeing the system in disarray. Randy let out a triumphant shout as cheers erupted across the bridge. They had done it. Against all odds, they had secured a foothold in Sigma 7. But there was no time to celebrate. They had to find the artifact before the Orions regrouped. The fleet took up defensive positions in orbit, while Randy led a team to the surface, consisting of Jack, Mike, Dr. Saunders, and a squad of heavily armed Marines. They landed in a dense jungle, the air thick with moisture and the chittering of alien insects. Dr. Saunders consulted his scanner. "The energy readings are coming from that direction," he said, pointing deeper into the undergrowth. "About 2 clicks. Randy nodded, readying his plasma rifle. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're walking into." They pushed through the jungle, hacking through the foliage with machetes. Strange animal cries echoed in the distance. The hair on the back of Randy's neck stood up. Something wasn't right. Suddenly, a massive shape burst from the trees, barreling towards them. It was a creature unlike anything Randy had ever seen, a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal, with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp claws. "Open fire!" Randy yelled, and the air filled with the sizzle of plasma bolts and the roar of assault rifles. The creature charged forward, seemingly unfazed by the barrage. It lashed out with its claws, sending Marines flying like rag dolls. Randy dove to the side as a claw whistled past his head, slamming into a tree trunk and reducing it to splinters. Jack and Mike flanked the creature, pouring fire into its flank. It roared in pain and fury, spinning to face them. Randy saw his chance. He charged forward, leaping onto the creature's back and jamming his rifle into the base of its skull. He pulled the trigger, and the creature's head exploded in a shower of gore and sparks. As the creature's body toppled to the ground, more shapes emerged from the jungle. Dozens of them, all different shapes and sizes, but all bearing the same unholy fusion of organic and mechanical parts. "Fall back," Randy ordered, and they retreated, firing as they went. The creatures pursued, relentless and implacable. They burst into a clearing and stopped dead. Before them stood a massive temple complex, its stone walls covered in alien glyphs and carvings. And in the center of the clearing, a pulsating mass of energy, shimmering with an otherworldly light. "The artifact," Dr. Saunders breathed. The creatures were closing in, their cries growing louder. Randy knew they had only one chance. He sprinted for the temple entrance, his team close behind. They fought their way through the temple, battling the creatures in close quarters. The Marines fell one by one, torn apart by claws and fangs. But Randy and his core team pushed on, driven by desperation and the knowledge that failure meant the end of everything. At last, they reached the central chamber, and there it was, a towering crystal structure pulsing with the same energy as the Theta 9 artifact. Randy approached it slowly, his heart pounding. As he drew near, a strange sensation filled his mind like a whisper at the edge of his consciousness. The crystal was calling to him, reaching out with tendrils of thought. Randy reached out to touch the crystal's surface, and suddenly he was no longer in the temple. He was somewhere else entirely, his mind transported across vast gulfs of space and time. He saw a great civilization, spanning the stars. Its technology and knowledge far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed. Great cities of glass and metal, ships that could cross the galaxy in the blink of an eye, machines that could reshape worlds at a whim. But then he saw the fall. A darkness creeping in at the edges of the vision, a corruption that spread like a cancer. He watched in horror as the people of this civilization changed, their bodies twisting and mutating, their minds consumed by an insatiable hunger for power. And he understood. The artifacts, the energy they contained, it was the source of this corruption, a force of pure darkness, seductive and all-consuming. The vision faded, and Randy found himself back in the temple, his hand still pressed against the crystal. But something was different. He could feel the energy coursing through his veins, filling him with strength and power beyond his wildest imaginings. He turned to face his team, and they recoiled in shock. His eyes glowed with an unearthly light, his skin crackling with dark energy. "Randy," Jack whispered, his face pale. "What happened to you?" Randy looked down at his hands, watching the energy dance across his fingertips. "The artifact, it changed me, gave me power." He clenched his fist, and a shockwave of energy blast outwards, shattering the temple walls like glass. "We have to find the others," Randy said, his voice echoing strangely. "Before the Orions do, the fate of the galaxy depends on it." They ventured out into the jungle once more, Randy leading the way. The creatures attacked again, but this time Randy met them head-on. He moved with blinding speed, tearing through their ranks with blasts of dark energy that left nothing but ash in their wake. His team watched in awe and fear as he cut a swath of destruction through the alien hordes. This was a Randy they had never seen before, a being of raw power and unbridled fury. As the last of the creatures fell, Randy turned to his team, his eyes blazing. "We have to keep moving. The Orions will be coming for the other artifacts. We have to get to them first." They traveled from world to world, following the trail of the ancient civilization's ruins and the energy signatures of the artifacts. On each planet, they faced new horrors, new abominations birthed by the Orions' dark experiments. But with each battle, Randy's powers grew stronger, and so did the darkness within him. He began to lash out indiscriminately, destroying friend and foe alike in his rages. His team watched him warily, unsure if the man they had known was still in there somewhere, behind the glowing eyes and crackling energy. As they approached the final artifact, on a dead world orbiting a cold, dim star, Randy could sense a presence waiting for them. A vast, ancient intelligence stirring from millennia of slumber. He knew with grim certainty that this would be their final battle, the culmination of everything they had fought for, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. But as he stared into the abyss of space, he could feel the darkness clawing at his mind, whispering seductive promises of power and domination, and he didn't know how much longer he could resist its call. As Randy and his team ventured deeper into the desolate world, a sense of dread permeated the air. The energy signatures of the final artifact grew stronger with each step, pulsing in Randy's mind like a beacon of darkness. They entered a vast chamber, its walls etched with the same alien glyphs they had seen before. And there, at the center of the room, stood the artifact, a towering monolith of jet-black crystal, thrumming with malevolent power. But it was the figure standing before the artifact that made Randy's blood run cold. Izar, the supreme commander of the Orion Empire, had shed his physical form entirely. In his place stood a being of pure, dark energy, his eyes glowing with a sickly purple light. "Welcome, Captain Hill," Izar's voice boomed, echoing through the chamber. "I see you've finally made it to the end of the game." Randy gripped his rifle tighter, his eyes narrowed. "What game? What are you talking about?" Izar laughed, a sound that sent chills down Randy's spine. "Don't you see? This has all been part of my plan from the beginning. The artifacts, the battles, your precious human fleet, all just pawns in a much larger scheme." He gestured to the artifact behind him. "With the power of these relics, I will ascend to godhood. I will rule over this galaxy for all eternity, and there is nothing you or your pathetic species can do to stop me." Randy's mind raced, trying to process Izar's words. The Orion commander had been manipulating them from the start, luring them into a trap. But to what end? And then it hit him. The dark energy, the corrupting influence of the artifacts. Izar wanted to harness that power for himself, to become something more than mortal, to transcend the bounds of flesh and blood. Randy knew that he couldn't let that happen. The galaxy would be plunged into an age of darkness and despair, ruled over by a mad god drunk on his own power. He reached out with his mind, tapping into the ancient energy that flowed through his veins. He could feel the artifact's power calling to him, whispering seductive promises of strength and dominion. But he pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. He had to stop Izar no matter the cost. The two titans clashed, their minds locked in a battle of wills. Waves of dark energy crackled and surged between them, tearing at the fabric of reality itself. Randy could feel the darkness within him rising up, threatening to consume him entirely. It would be so easy to give in, to let the power take hold and transform him into a being like Izar. But he knew that path led only to ruin. He had seen what the dark energy had done to the ancient civilization, to the Orions, to the creatures they had fought on Sigma-7. He couldn't let that happen to him, or to the galaxy he had sworn to protect. With a final desperate surge of willpower, Randy seized control of the artifact's energy. He could feel it flowing through him, a raging torrent of raw power that threatened to tear him apart from the inside out. But he held on, channeling that power into a single devastating blast. It tore through Izar's defenses like they were made of paper, shattering his form into a million shards of darkness. The backlash hit Randy like a physical blow, sending him flying across the chamber. He hit the ground hard, every nerve in his body screaming in agony. He could feel his life force draining away, the price of wielding such immense power. His vision blurred, the world around him fading into a hazy grey. Dimly he was aware of his team rushing to his side, their faces etched with worry and grief. Jack knelt beside him, cradling his head in his lap. "Randy, stay with us," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "We'll get you out of here, get you to a medic, just hold on." But Randy knew it was too late. He could feel the darkness closing in, the weight of his sacrifice bearing down on him. With the last of his strength, he raised his head to look up at the stars visible through a crack in the chamber's ceiling. A smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. He had done it. He had given his life to save the galaxy from Izar's madness, to ensure that the light of hope would continue to shine. As his eyes drifted closed, he knew that his legacy would live on, that he would be remembered as a hero, a champion of all that was good and just in the universe. The darkness took him then, and Randy Hill knew no more. In the aftermath of that final cataclysmic battle, the human fleet emerged victorious, but at a terrible cost. The TSS Indomitable, the great flagship that had been Randy's home for so long, was destroyed, reduced to a field of shattered debris drifting through the void. Countless other ships had been lost as well, their crews sacrificing their lives to buy time for the fleet to regroup and press the attack. The survivors were left to pick up the pieces, to mourn their fallen comrades, and begin the long, difficult process of rebuilding. But even as they celebrated their hard-won victory, a sense of unease hung over the fleet. They knew that the threat of the Orion Empire and the dark energy that had powered their terrible weapons could never be truly vanquished. It would be a constant struggle, a never-ending battle against the forces of chaos and destruction that lurked at the edges of the galaxy. As for Randy himself, his body was never recovered from the chamber where he had made his final stand. Some whispered that he had ascended to a higher plane of existence, becoming one with the ancient power he had wielded in those last desperate moments. Others believed that he had simply disappeared, his physical form consumed by the dark energy he had unleashed. But one thing was certain: his legacy would endure, passed down from generation to generation, as a shining example of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable resolve. Randy Hill had given his life to save the galaxy, and in doing so, he had ensured that the light of hope would never be extinguished. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, a new story was beginning. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.